Now, I'm happy to answer any questions about anything I've said, haven't said, anything you're curious about, anything that you would like to know about. I'm more than happy to answer. There's one. Okay, there you go.
I just wanted to know, being married and having kids and also being obviously very successful in your professional career, what has been the hardest thing that you went through and how did you deal with that?
Oh, that's a really good question. I want to tell you that's always the number one question young women ask, and and I'm glad of that. And it hasn't changed much, I will tell you, over the last 40 years. I read something once. Story. I'm glad you asked this question. Okay, girls. I heard Cokie Roberts once say, "Women can have it all. You just can't have it all at once." That women live their lives in chapters. And I've always thought that is really true. And isn't that a great thing? Because, women can we can live our lives in chapters. I saw, and I'll explain that a little bit more in a moment, but I saw her, I was at a dinner. In fact, Michelle made me think about this when she was talking. I was at a dinner last summer when hosted by the National Journal for this, the 25 most influential women in Washington thing. And so I went to, I was at this dinner. And of course, I was one of the only conservatives. They're really, I think they were picking, that's how they came up with me. We got to have one conservative. So I'm at this dinner, and I knew a lot of these women, but they were so frozen in the 70s. All they wanted to sit there and do was, here are these powerful women who are very successful, and all they can do is gripe and whine about how women haven't succeeded, and whatever. I was really taken aback. I was not expecting. I thought, gosh, this could have happened 30 years ago or 40 years ago, and I would have been, right at home listening to this. I think we ought to at least recognize some things have changed. But I said to Cokie, I said, you said something 30 years ago that I heard you say, which was, she was there, which was that women can have it all. They just can't have it all at once, and that women live their lives in chapters. And she nearly bit my head off. She said, well, that was a stupid thing I said. I don't know why I said that. I started to say, because you lived your life in chapters. I actually know about that. I thought it was really interesting. When I was in the legislature, and I did not have a child when I was in the legislature. I left the legislature, married my husband. I married him the last year I was in the legislature. I married him and then decided it was my last year. I decided not to run for re-election. And then I had my daughter. And I will tell you that we made it a point. I just had this conversation with her yesterday. She is soon to be 28 in 2 weeks, and she lives in Australia, which breaks my heart. But we made it a point that, and I couldn't have done this if I had been in elective office at the time. So I've been in elective office, so then I left public office, had a child. I worked full-time. But let me tell you, there's a big difference in having a full-time job and being in public office. Because when you're in public office, your life is not your own. And I have to tell you, I hope you all will look at Senator Kelly Ayotte. She's a real wonderful conservative role model that you should look toward. But she's got small children, and I know it's heartbreaking for her to try to be in the United States Senate, travel back and forth to Washington, and has these small children. I know it's very hard for her. She's a dear friend and client, and she's a wonderfully courageous woman, and I'm glad she's doing what she does for us, but I am telling you, it's not easy. And being in office is really demanding because your constituents think they own you. I used to get anonymous letters about my hair. People telling me it was time to go get my hair cut. Thank God we didn't have email back then. But I made it a point. We made it a point that we were going to be home, that my husband and my daughter and I were going to be at home and have dinner around the table every night. And we pretty much did that. There would be occasions. But I made sure that I did not have a job that would require me. I was practicing law in Oklahoma City. And there, I would sometimes work on the weekends or whatever. But we had dinner at home around the table every night. That is something families don't do in America anymore, and it's a big problem. Now, as my daughter got older, and by the time she got to high school, she was the one that wasn't home for dinner. So, I started being able to do other kinds of work. But I just think that you have to set priorities. And the one thing that is true for all of us, there's one thing all of us share. We are different in many, many ways, but there is one thing we all share. All of us are given only 24 hours in the day. How you use your time. And I am not one of these people. I read a thing this morning, this woman who writes this blog, which I generally love, but I'm telling you, this blog this morning was, and you should have all of your work finished and go at home at the same time every day. And I'm thinking, what planet do you live on, darling? But, you just make some priorities. And my priority was that my family was going to have dinner at home every night. And I'm getting ready to give a talk to a group of women who work for a consulting firm. I'm going to tell them that. Because the truth is, I couldn't have worked for that company. I couldn't have made it as an associate in my law firm. I ended up coming in as a lateral partner because I had my own firm, and I merged my firm into this big firm 12 years ago. But coming up through the ranks as an indentured servant law associate at this law firm, are you crazy? I couldn't have done that. I wouldn't have done it. There's no way. I would never survive. They would have busted me out of there years ago for my beliefs. But, when you come in as a partner and you have your own book of business, they can't mess with you. But it's really hard. And so I would just tell you, set priorities. And that's why your life partner is so important. Because I couldn't have done any of what I do without my husband. Being right there, supporting, helping, thinking of what I need before I even realize it. There have been times when, I can think of a particular time we were going to some event. The car was there to pick us up, to take us to the airport. The bag was packed. I was trying to finish something on a case that had just come up, and I'm trying to write this thing and get out of there. And he just came in and he said, you know what? I have an idea. And I'm just sweating bullets because I got to finish this and I got to get on the plane. And he said, I tell you what, we're not going. I said, yeah, the car's out there. We got to go. The bags are packed. He goes, no, we're not going because this is optional. It was a charitable thing that we were going to do. He said, this is optional. This is your work. You're going to be crazy the whole time. Yes, it would be fun. Yes, we would be with our friends. We're not going. Now, he does that kind of thing all the time. I, of course, would be the mad woman trying to continue to figure out how to do everything because they were expecting us, and my husband was going to meet his friends, we were going to play golf, blah, blah. He goes, no, we're not doing that. Who you pick for your life partner, big important thing. Yes. Oh, yeah.
Well, you tend to work in really male-dominated fields.
Yeah.
And I always end up with, some of us have only male colleague interns, and I tend to always end up just with other guys. What kind of advice do you have staying professional but still getting your point across? Because it's a challenge.
Well, I would tell you, honestly, learn about some sport. Listen, that's the male language. The male language is ball. So pick one. I don't care which one. Football, baseball. I actually have written a law review article about baseball. I mean, my husband, he always tells everybody, he went to college on a baseball scholarship, and his father was a Major League Baseball player, but I was the scorekeeper on the junior high baseball team. I travel with the team in junior high. I'm really old. We used to call it junior high. Now it's called middle school. But I used to but I would go with the team. So I learned to keep score on the baseball, and I was the only girl that got to keep that they would let keep the writing time clock at the high school wrestling tournament. They don't even keep writing time anymore. But I could talk sports, and I actually will tell you that my husband tells people that he married me because I was the first girl he ever met who knew the infield fly rule. And you don't know what that is. So I would tell you that sports matter. Most guys are into sports. And sports are really great, and are really great for women to learn about, because I'll tell you an interesting lesson about sports. I read a book many, many years ago. It was called, and I think this is out of print because I tried to find it, Games Mother Never Taught Me. And one of the first things it talked about was the definition of team. Now, if I ask you What's your definition of a team? Anybody want to tell me? Tell me what a team is. Anybody want to say? Okay, right there. What's a team?
It's a group of people with a common goal, working together with a common goal.
Okay. Let me tell you, that is a female definition of team. Let me tell you what emanates from we're all working together, right? Well, my husband said, I asked him, what's your definition of a team? He said, a team is a group of people, each of whom has his or her own responsibility, and if they do their job correctly, the team does well. And the manager's job is to make sure that everybody is playing his position. Spoken like a true baseball player. I really do fear, however, that in our society, because I'm sure a lot of you in college, and now we all have these group projects in school where everybody gets the same grade and nobody gets to be any better, and even if so somebody ends up doing most of the work, probably most of you in this room, and the slackard who doesn't do squat gets the same grade you do. This is un-American, in my opinion, but that's what they're kind of trying to get us to all think. But it is important, because in life, really, my husband said, I said, well, no, everybody got to work together. He said, yeah, but, this idea of everybody working together means that if the first baseman is having a breakdown, everybody runs over and helps the first baseman. He said, everybody can't run over to help the first baseman, because then the hitter's going to hit the ball in the third. He said, everybody has to play his position to the best of his ability. So it's really important to understand this concept. That's a sports concept. And guys kind of get that. And so I just would tell you that men talk about sports. That's what they do instead of talking about feelings. And so if you can talk sports, you have to realize they are talking feelings. So I would tell you, number one, talk sports. Be friends. Be their friend. I used to be the mother confessor when I was in the legislature. I cannot tell you, they would tell me things they would never tell their wives. I would also try to be friends with their wives, because, and I was friends with their wives, and I am friends with the wives. I try to be friends with the wives, but I have very good friends. My colleagues, my mentors have been men who've taken me under their wing, and I always say behind every successful woman is a man who's willing to take the risk. So, I think it's just be yourself and be friends. Do a good job. But don't do this one thing. One thing that women do. I have so many, there are girl things. I should write a book called That's a Girl Thing. Because you think that if you just do a good job and work harder than everybody else, you'll be recognized. I want to tell you, that is not true. You need to do a good job. You need to work harder than everybody else. Margaret Chase Smith said, once, that her keys to success were that you had to work. And I think that's right. But in the final analysis, you have to be willing to ask for what you've earned. Don't ask for what you don't deserve. But when you deserve it, when you've earned it, don't be afraid to go in and say, I want this promotion. I need this pay raise. I've earned it. I should be picked for this job. Don't just sit there and hope that somebody's going to, second cabin first choose, I choose you. Doesn't work that way in real life. And I have seen so many instances where women were entitled to something, and honestly, the guys are just kind of waiting to be asked, to be told, okay. And sometimes you don't get it, even when you deserve it, and you ask for it, you don't get it. But at least you've exhausted your remedies. You've asked for it. Yes.
Thank you, first of all, so much for coming.
It's great to be with you.
Really inspirational. So I am a student at a university in California, and I'm a conservative. First of all, I'm the minority there.
Yes.
Second of all, my school's about 45 minutes from Berkeley, so half the professors in my department are Berkeley grads. Oftentimes, I'm forced to choose in between the grade that I deserve and putting forward what I truly believe politically, poli-sci student here.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for me in dealing with that?
That is a really tough one. And it is so much worse today than it was when I was on campus. Honestly, I was a history and poli-sci major at the University of Oklahoma 1,000 years ago. And we really did not have the kind of pronounced liberal bias that exists today. And so I can't imagine living with that. I will tell you what my daughter did, but she believes that she was graded down for that she said that what she would say, she would raise her hand and say, now what you just said, now was that, is this factual or was that your opinion? And that these particular professor would say, well, I guess that's my opinion. Because she would say, well, if it's factual, that's one thing, but I just need to understand the distinction so that I'll know, could you just kind of explain to me, is this your opinion or is this factual? But, she thinks that she did that and got graded down for it. So, I don't know. I almost think that, maybe there's some value in going in and talking to a professor and saying at the beginning, maybe that's the thing to do. Try this. Let's try this, see if it works. So go in at the beginning of the semester and say, look, I just want to tell you before, I'm a conservative. And so I really, I don't want us to be I don't want to get up on the wrong foot with you, but I'm a really good student. I work really hard. I try really hard. I'll do all the work and all. But I need to know, are you going to grade me down? Are you going to, is my grade going to be jeopardized if I speak my mind? Because if I am, I'll just be quiet. But I just need to know that from you. I bet there aren't many who would say, yep, girl, you say what you think and I'm flunking you. So I don't know, try it. Try it. Maybe they'll say, would you prefer I not disagree with you in class? Or, you see, try it. You can say, maybe they'll say, no, I'd really rather you not. So, because you can say, I just would prefer, you just tell me. I could, we used to say, I can teach this round or flat, just whichever you prefer. I'll do it however you think is best. But if you really want discussion and differing views, I really would love to engage in that, but I don't want to do it if that's going to make you uncomfortable and give me a bad grade. What's the worst that can happen? You get a bad grade. But, surely they have some kind of, I really think we ought to start appeals all over the country, filing academic appeals about, documenting these things. Keep a diary, document it. If you really think somebody's doing it, document it through the semester. And don't let them get away with it. See what happens. What's the worst that can happen? You flunk. But anyway.
We have a question over here. Is that
Oh.
Hi. In your own opinion, do you think that modern conservative women today are bold enough? Have they taken a back seat in a way? Kind of let men take the lead in the conservative movement?
I don't think so. What I think happens is that conservative women are invisible to the mainstream media and to the elites of the country. And so we have a lot, I was really interested in listening to you all and who you had selected for your, your role models. There are all these women in Congress that are really quite terrific. And Marsha Blackburn, somebody said you're reading Marsha Blackburn's book. Marsha Blackburn, Kathy McMorris Rogers, Senator Diane Black from Tennessee, Congresswoman Diane Black from Tennessee, Ileana, there are these wonderful women leaders in Congress, but they're Republicans, so we don't ever hear about them. So we tend to then think that the women that we do see are the ones on television. Or, Margaret Thatcher, who's just larger than life. But, no, I think there are lots of conservative women. I think we have more than we've ever had before. And I'm very serious in no small part because of the work of Clare, Boothe, Luce, and Michelle Easton. But, for instance, there are some of these wonderful women on campus who are doing great things. And, no, but be stronger. We can always use more. Hold on a minute. I have
tea. So coming to the East Coast was a big shift for me because I'm all the way from Oregon, Washington, and it's a really high intensity sort of environment, and we're surrounded by all of these wonderful people and great resources, and I'm just wondering how, what kinds of, when we are able to meet with staffers in our office and we're able to meet with the congressmen and women that we're working for, what kinds of questions can we ask, and how can we best optimize this opportunity that we have here?
Here's the most number one question that you should always ask. I'm here for a short while. How can I help you the most? See, it's about service. It's not what can you do for me. It's how can I help you the most? I have some extra time. How can I help you? If you're looking for jobs to do, if you keep your eyes and ears open, you'll figure out what's going on, who needs help. Figure out who's working hard, who could use some help. Keep your eyes open. Go help. Because politics really is a meritocracy, more than anything I've ever done. Because, if you are somebody who's willing to help and put in the hours and be there and be responsible and say, how can I help your workload? What research can I do for you? You will learn more and you will be more valuable, and people will start relying on you because they know they can rely on you. So my daughter, I tell you this funny story, when she was going to be an intern the summer between her junior and senior year in college at the Inter-American Development Bank. And I was on my way to a meeting at the Heritage Foundation, and it's on her first day. She's been to orientation, and then this is her first day she started to work. And she got there at 8 o'clock in the morning. I get this call at 9 a.m. Mom! I said, what? What's wrong? She said, I've been here for an hour and they haven't given me anything to do. I said, Margaret, this is not the Ritz. They are not, there's not a social director who's sitting there waiting to make sure that you're entertained and having a good time. I said, it may be a while before they give you anything to do. Do you know how many interns come through there? They have no idea whether you are a moron or somebody's daughter who's just going to sit and polish her fingernails all day. I said, my suggestion to you is to go around and ask people, introduce yourself, ask people if they need any help. And I said, and the first time you ask them that, they'll say no. But you just keep after it and find things to do. And they will begin to rely on you. And in fact, by the end of that summer, when she went back to college for her senior year, they put her on a consulting contract to pay her to complete some projects that none of them had time to do, but that she had taken on and wasn't finished with, and they paid her for the rest of that fall. So I just tell you that because you just need to know you're here to work. But they have hundreds and hundreds of interns coming through there. And the only way you're going to distinguish yourself is if you actually seem to be serious, responsible, reliable, and interested in the work. So it doesn't mean you don't have fun this summer. You'll have a blast. But you're here to work. Learn from that. Yes?
Would you please share your experience of what made you decide to go on to help expose the IRS abuse and sort of your path to make it a mainstream issue?
Well, I've been dealing with this for 3.5 years, almost 4 years. One of the things, actually, I'll send a link to Catherine. So you can go, and I actually finally put together a backgrounder. I've actually been thinking maybe I should keep notes and write a book, but you don't do anything in this country that you don't have to tell the IRS what you're doing and how you are going to be organized. I don't know how illegals survive in our environment. I have to tell you, I'm not that smart. I couldn't figure it out. But, if you want to start a business, you want to be a partnership, you want to be an LLC, you want to be there's different kinds of corporations. What's the first thing you have to do? You have to go to the IRS. You have to fill out what's called an SS4 form, and you have to say, this is what I'm going to do. Well, when people come to see me and they say, well, we want to do this or that in politics or policy, we want to have a grassroots lobbying group, or we want to do X, Y, and Z, and we want to give money to candidates, or we want to go run ads, or whatever it is. I listen to what they say they want to do, And I say, okay, well, the kind of activities in which you want to engage will require that you be organized as X. And there's this whole list in the Internal Revenue Code about all these different things, and you have to pick what you're going to do. So, historically, so I've been doing this for a long time. And there's a form, if you're going to be a 501c4, which is a grassroots lobbying organization, or if you want to be a charitable and educational organization, there's a form you fill out. It's 40 pages. It has 200 questions. It's not just a postcard. And you fill this out, and you send all these documents to the IRS. And I went back through, and just picked 10 or so clients before 2010 and did the timeline of how long it took to get the letter back from the IRS saying, okay, your exempt tax status is approved. And the kinds of questions that you got before the spring of 2010 would be confined to the application that you submitted. Well, then, in the spring of 2010, I'm doing maybe 4 or 5 of these a year. And then, all of a sudden, it stopped. And we don't hear anything. And I had this one group, the first one that I began to realize something was going on. We applied for exempt status in October of 2009 as a 501c4. They were organized to fight Obamacare. And they were very active. They were running ads. They were doing emails. They were very active. October of 2009. That organization still has not received its exempt status from the IRS. It's almost 4 years. In June of 2011, I wrote the IRS a letter. And one of the reasons I knew it wasn't confined to Cincinnati is that organization I've never gotten any communication from Cincinnati about this organization. It's always come from Washington, D.C. I'm now on my 4th, I call them my parole officers, because I'll call them and say, hey, I'm checking in. How are things going? In June of 2011, I wrote them a letter and said, to the D.C. office, and I said, I don't know what's happened to this application. The only thing this group has ever done is fight Obamacare. I'm beginning to think that's why they didn't get their letter of exempt status. What's going on? And 3 agents called me all together, and no, we're working through it. We're working through it. That's 2 years ago. Then I had other clients that, others that were for whom we made application. And last spring, February, March of last year, because I represent lots of different groups, we get these letters from the IRS that are all pretty much the same, pages and pages of questions with parts and subparts and sub-subparts. So oppressive, intrusive. Tell us every meeting you've had, every speech that your president has given. To whom has she spoken? What books have you read? Who have been the speakers at your meetings? What have you discussed? Who are your donors? And I said, I am telling you, there's something wrong here. So I collected these letters, and I went through and redacted the identifying information, both the IRS agents' identifying information and my clients' identifying information. I put together this packet. I went to the House Ways and Means IRS Oversight Committee staff and put this there and told them something is going on. There is something going on. I've never seen this before. I sent it over to the Senate Finance Committee, Republican staff, Senator Orrin Hatch's staff. I said, something is going on. You have to ask the IRS what they are doing because it is wrong. And I said, I haven't gotten an exempt letter for any of these organizations in 2 years, 3 years. And so, of course, the Congress did ask. They sent letters and they asked. And they had the commissioner of the IRS testify in March of last year. Why are you asking all these questions? Are these groups being targeted? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. The IRS knew, the acting commissioner, everybody in what we call the C-suite, the executive offices of the IRS, they knew within weeks of Doug Shulman's testimony that he had told Congress false information. They knew that. They even said they knew that. Now, when Roger Clemens lied to Congress about steroids, what happened to him? He got indicted, tried, he was acquitted, but I'm ready for the first indictments to come against these bozos who lied to Congress.